Hey everyone, and welcome back to NPStation. So today we are going to be creating a Space Invaders game in Python. For this program we are going to be using Visual Studio Code, so make sure you have that open on your computer. So as you can see, I've already created this new file called spaceinvader.py. Make sure to go ahead and do the same. So we're just going to put in our first line of code here, which is going to be to import 4 different modules. These modules are turtle, random, math, and win sound. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to go ahead and create another file here. So what I've done is I've created a Space Invaders folder itself, so make sure to do the same, and you can do that in your file explorer. So what you're gonna have to do is just create a folder wherever you want in the file explorer, and you're gonna call it Space Invaders, and in there you are actually going to have to download many different pictures and sounds, and all of those pictures and sounds are linked in the description box. So go ahead, pause this video, check the description box, and download all those pictures. Alright, so now you guys should have done that, and you need to download all those pictures to code further into this program. So now go ahead and you should have linked that Space Invaders folder into your Visual Studio workspace, so you can access it here, and you can see that I have all of the pictures and sounds in my Space Invader folder. So I have the background, which you guys should have checked out before when you were downloading. So this is a background for a game. You have, like, you know, it's space, and then we have our enemy, which is this little guy, the alien. So those are the enemies that we're going to try and shoot in this game. This is the explosion sound. We have our game over sound. We have a laser sound. And this is our our missile picture. So this is the bullet basically that we'll be launching from our rocket, and our rocket, this is the one, it is called player. Since this is the player, we're going to be controlling this rocket with our keys on our computer. Okay, so, and of course this is the file that we have just created. So in the Space Invader folder, you're going to go ahead, click on this icon here, which is the new file icon, and we're going to go ahead and create a new file, and it is going to be called player.py. So in this file, we're going to be typing in all the code for our player picture, and basically how this is going to work. So first thing we're going to do, I'm just going to close that. First thing in our player file is we're going to create a comment. So here, I'm just going to say basically what we're doing in this file. We're saying creating the class player with move left and move right functions. And I think I have said it in all of my Python videos. Creating comments in your code are so important. So please do create this comment and type the code as I am typing it as well. It will help you later on. So go ahead. We're going to import the turtle module for this file. And here, let's go ahead and create our class player, and in parentheses we're going to have turtle.turtle. Oops, let me fix this. Turtle. There we go. So here we're going to have our def, and then we'll have our init function with the self in the parentheses, and then we'll have our superclass dot init and just the empty parentheses at the end. Now what we're going to do is we need to register the shape of the turtle. So to do this, what you're going to do, again, go back to this player file where the picture is. We're going to go ahead, select that, right click on the file, and here it'll open all of these options. You're going to click on copy relative path. So when you do that, nothing will pop up later on, but it will copy on your computer. Now go back to your player file, and here after the register shape in double quotes or single quotes, do Control V. And there you go. Now you can see that the path of that player.gif file has copied in your code. So that's great. So we need to do that to register the exact shape of the turtle, since that is what we're going to be using. And next we're going to set the color, which is blue, I believe. Yep. Oops. Let me exit that. All right. So now here, the next line, we're going to set the speed, which is going to be just 0 in the parentheses like that. And then again, we're going to do self.shape. And again, do the control V because we need the path here as well. And the next thing is we're going to use that pen up function. And then we're going to go to this spot on the screen, which is 0, -250. Okay. Now put in another comment, and I'm just going to say player movement. Just a short little comment here for this short little line of code, which is player speed. And we're going to set the speed to 40. Alright, so now click backspace so you're in that same indentation as the previous function there. So here we're going to create our two functions, which is that move left and move right. So this is how we're going to control the player with our keys on the computer. So we're going to start off with the move left and make sure to put in self in the parentheses. So we're going to set our x variable to be equal to self.xcore, which is x core center x coordinate, and then we'll have x minus equals self.player speed, just like that. And then we're going to have an if condition, which will say if x is less than -450, we're going to set our x to equal -450. So basically what that is saying is it's setting the borders for our window. We don't want our player, the rocket, to go off of the screen, right? So -450, we have that square window right over here. So -450 is like the limit on the left hand side. So that's why if we're stating here if the x is less than -450, we're just going to set it to that, since we don't want our player to go beyond the border. And now we're going to say self.setX, and we'll have x in the parentheses. Okay, so that's all for our move left function. Now let's do move right. And it has basically the same layout. Here we're going to set our x to self.xcore. We'll have x plus equals, not minus equals, self.player speed. And then here for our if condition, we're going to do the opposite. So if x is greater than +450, then we'll set x to 450. So that is our right hand side limitation there. And again, we're going to do self.setX, x in the parentheses. Okay, so that's all for our player.py file. That's great. Now let's go ahead back here, and we're going to create another file in our Space Invader folder. And let's go ahead and call this, we'll do the bullet.py. And that .py tells the computer that it's a Python file. So make sure to do the same, because if you don't, then you have to go down here and set the language mode, which is just more work for you. So just go ahead and name it .py. And here, actually the image is called missile, but I'm just going to go ahead and do bullet.py. This is a very short file here. We're just going to import turtle like before. Create our class. I'm going to name it bullet turtle.turtle in the parentheses, just like that. We'll have our init function with the self in the parentheses, and then super dot init, just like that. And here we'll again register the shape for the turtle. So to do that, let's go to the missile.gif file, right click, copy relative path, go back to bullet.py, and double quotes, we're going to copy or paste that here. And now what we're going to do is self.shape is, again, just do control V because we need that path here as well. And then we're going to do the pen up function. We're going to go to this spot, which is 0, -240. And then we're going to do self.speed. And then speed AMT is equal to 20. We'll have self.state is equal to ready. Okay, so that's all for our bullet.py. Now, that was pretty short and simple. Let's move on to the next one. And let's go ahead and do the enemy. Wait, did we do that? No, we didn't. Yeah. Enemy.py. Alright, so we have the bullet and the player. Now let's do the enemy. Okay, so here, let's go ahead, import the turtle. And we're also going to use random. So we're going to set the class name to enemy. And in parentheses, we'll have turtle.turtle. So you can tell like there's that same pattern for all of these files that we're creating here. And we're going to have that def in it. Make sure to put that space there. With self. And then super dot init. Just like that. And now what we do again is that register shape function. So let's go ahead to the enemy picture, which is right here. We're going to right click, copy relative path. Let's go back here and control V. Alright, so now let's set the color to red. And then we'll have the shape, again, control V because we need that path here. And now just do self.pen up. I'm going to just close that. Self.pu, which is pen up, and then x is equal to, here we're going to use that random module. So random.randint, like that. And in parentheses, we'll have negative 450, 450. I'll explain this in a minute. And the y is going to be random.randint. Nope, randint. And here we're going to have 180 as the first coordinate and then 250. Okay, so basically these two lines of codes are setting for our enemies. We're not only going to have one enemy on our screen, as that would be a pretty boring Space Invaders game. We're going to have maybe around 10 on the screen. So for all of those, it's going to choose a random location on the screen to start off on. So our the x coordinate for that for the location will be anywhere between negative 450 to positive 450 on the screen. So it's going to choose any of those numbers, and it's going to start at that x coordinate, and then it's going to choose a y coordinate. And it'll be any random number from 180 to 250, as that these numbers are like the borders for our screen. So that's why we're just setting a random location to start off with for each of our enemies. Now the next thing is we're going to go to the x and y that it has randomly chosen, and then we'll have our speed AMT again here, which will be equal to 5. Right? So now that is actually, we're done with our enemy file, and I think we just have one more to do. We've done the player, we did enemy, we did bullet, and now let's do score. So there isn't a picture or sound for the score, but we do need a file for this, score.py. So here, let's go ahead and import, let's see, turtle. We're going to use that. So import turtle, let's set our class, which is score. Turtle.turtle. And then def init self. Super empty parentheses dot init. Like that. And here we're gonna have the self.pen color. So we're not going to say self.color. It'll be pen color since this is actual text that is going to be displayed. And we're going to set that to white so we can easily see it on our screen, as the background will be black. And self.speed will have 0. And self.score value. And we're going to set this to 0 as well. Alright, the next thing is we're going to use that pen up function, and then self.setPosition. Position. There we go. and we're going to have that as negative 350, 250. So this is where the text will be written on our screen for the score. Now let's go ahead and put in our write function here. So this is, we're going to put in the code for how the score is actually going to be displayed on our screen. So in double quotes, we'll have the score, right? It'll have a colon and then curly brackets here. So in that curly brackets, it'll input the score, the current score in the game, comma, format, and here we'll have self.score value, which will be the format of it, and then comma, align is equal to left, comma, font. So in here, we're going to set the font for our text, which is Arial. We'll also have it, the font size will be 14, and we'll set it to be bold as well. Okay, so now we're done with that write function. Let's go ahead and now put that last line of code, which is self.hideTurtle. Alright, so now we're done with our score file, and now we're actually done with all of these separate files that we have created here. So that's great. Now we can finally go back to our main file, which is this spaceinvader.py, and start coding in here. Okay, so we have that first line of code, which is just importing all those modules. Now what we're going to do is we need to import all of these different files that we have created into this one file. So to do that, let's say from player, which is that player.py, we're going to import the class player. And we're going to do that for all of the different files. From enemy, import enemy, right? And then from bullet, import bullet. From score, import score. Okay, so now we have all of the different files that we created in our Space Invader file. Now let's go ahead. I'm going to just put a comment, and it'll say setting my screen. So this is the code for just setting our screen in the format. I'm going to label it as SCR for short, for screen, and then turtle.screen here with empty parentheses. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do scr.setup, which will be 1600. Oops. Okay, so now let's go ahead and set the background color, scr.bg color, and that'll be black. And then we'll go ahead and do scr.title, and I'm going to set, this is basically the title that will show up for the window, and we'll just say Space Invader game. Okay, so after the title, we're going to set the background picture. So we do have that picture, right? So we'll do bg pic first of all. And then again, we're going to do that relative path. So let's go to the dp.gif, and this is the background for our game. Right click, copy relative path. Let's go back here, Control V. There we go. Now we have the path in there. Alright, so we're done with setting the screen. Let's go ahead and just set this variable for the player. We'll have an enemies one as well. I think I spelled that wrong. Enemies. You go to, just set that to an empty bracket, and then we'll have a for I in range for 8. For I in range 8, we'll have 8 enemies. Enemies dot append, and then we'll have enemy in the parentheses here. Okay, so append is means to add, and now let's go ahead, make sure to exit that 4, and then we'll have another variable for bullet, and we'll have another variable for score. So B and S, and then we're going to go ahead and set, or just actually I'm going to put in some comments here. So now we're going to deal with the collision between bullet and enemy. And now let's go ahead and create a function. This will be called collision play. So here we'll have two variables in the parentheses, a and b. And now I'm going to create a variable. We're going to call it distance. And I'm going to, there's a whole bunch of code for this one variable actually. We're going to say math.sqrt right here. And in parentheses, we'll have abs, another set of parentheses, math.pow, and two set of parentheses here, we'll have a.xcore right there, minus b dot xcore. We're going to close that one set of parentheses, comma 2, and then we're going to add math.pow. This is a lot. Math.pow, sorry. Math.pow, two set of parentheses, a.ycore, parentheses, minus b.ycore. I'm trying to go very slow here so I don't miss anything. Empty parentheses, close one set, comma 2, 1, 2, 3. Alright, so that was a whole ton of code that we just typed in there. All of that is just calculating that distance from the enemy, or sorry, from the bullet and the enemy. So basically we shoot the bullet to the enemies from the player, right? So when that little missile, it might help if I show the picture. So this is the bullet, right? So we're dealing with the collision between the bullet and the enemy in that def collision play function that we just created. So that whole line of code that we just typed is basically saying, calculating the math for the distance between this bullet and the enemy. So if that distance is the specific amount that we just set in that whole ton of code that we just typed in there, then the enemy is killed, right? So that's the whole point of that code. I hope that you understood that. But basically, that's what it does. And now let's go ahead and set the if condition for it. So if distance, and then if distance is less than 20, so 20 pixels, we're going to return true. Else we are going to return false. Right, so all of this, guys, we're just calculating that distance between the bullet and the enemy to declare if that enemy is killed or not. Okay, now we're going to click backspace, make sure you're in that first no indenting for this, as we're going to create another function which is going to be called collision. Here again we'll have A and B. Alright, so now guess what? We're actually going to be doing that same thing with the distance function variable. So I think I can go ahead and just copy and paste the code. Let me close this. Let's see. So I'm just gonna check if it's actually going to just stay the same. A.xcore minus B. Yeah, actually everything just stays the same. So we are saved. We don't have to type that whole thing again. And now let's go ahead, put in another if condition. So we'll have if distance is less than 25, then we'll return true. Else return false. Okay, so now we're done with that collision function. Let's move on to another function here, and we're gonna call this fire bullet. So here what we're gonna do is type in the code for actually firing the bullet from the player. So we're gonna have this global right here. So it's gonna say global self state, and then we're gonna put in a if condition here. So if, let's see, if b dot state is equal to ready, comma, or colon, and then we'll have b dot state is equal to fire. Right, so we're just setting the state for the firing the bullet here. And in that same annotation, we'll have the win sound, which is that module that we first imported at the top. So win sound dot play sound. And then here, we're going to go back to the laser.wave sound. So if you listen, I don't know if it'll play. I don't know if you guys are able to hear that, but this is the sound we'll be using when we fire the bullet. So again, right click, copy relative path. So just put that in there. Oops, there we go. And here, actually, we're going to, don't close the parentheses there. Put in a comma, and then we'll have win sound dot snd, and it should come up here async, this one. And now you can close the parentheses. Okay, so done with that. Now we're actually going to set some variables. So x is equal to p dot x core. So I think we had set the p here, which is a player class, right over here, line 15. So using that p variable again. And then y is equal to, it should be p dot y core. Yeah, p dot y core. And in parentheses, or not in the parentheses, after parentheses, we're going to say plus 30. And then we'll have b dot go to, b stands for that bullet class of x and y. And then b dot show turtle. Oops. Show turtle, empty parentheses. Okay, so now we're done with that. Let's go ahead, done with the fire bullet function. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the key bindings. So I'm going to put that comment exactly here, key bindings, so we know what we're doing. We're going to say turtle.listen, which makes sure that we are listening to what the user is doing on their keyboard. So if they click that right arrow, it's going to move right because we're listening to, paying attention to what the user is doing. So now that's basically what that function is. Now we're going to use an onKey function. And this is to state the how the player will move left and right. So we're going to use that move left function that we created in our player.py file, which was right over here. These two, move left, move right. So we're using that here as well. And comma, we're going to say left, right? And then we're going to do turtle.onKey. So here we're going to do the same thing except with our move right function. And then we'll have the comma, we'll say right, since we're going to move right. And then we're going to do one last thing in the key bindings, which is the onKey p dot, oh no, p dot. It'll just be fire bullet. We're going to use that fire bullet function that we created right here. And we're going to say space. So that right there is very important because it's saying that when the user clicks the space bar, it is going to go call this fire bullet function, and it's going to fire the bullet from our player. All right, same thing with these. Once the user clicks the left arrow, we're going to call the move left function, and we're going to move the player left. Once the user clicks the right arrow, calling the move right function, and it's going to move the player right. All right, so very simple right there. Now let's go ahead, create another comment, and this is our main game loop. All right, so this is basically the real deal of what we're going to type now. So let's go ahead, we're going to have a while true, and here for enemy in enemies. And I'm going to put a comment in here too, which is going to say enemy movement. So we're going to say x is equal to enemy.xcore, and then x plus equals enemy dot speed mount. Right? So now let's go ahead, enemy dot set x, and here we'll have X in the parentheses. And now we're going to set another comment, which is going to say movement back and down. I'll just say that, back and down. Okay, so if enemy dot x core is greater than 425, then we'll set we'll have a for I, or actually it'll be for j in enemies. We're gonna set the y to be equal to j dot y core, and then the y will be minus equals 25, and then we'll also have the j dot set y, and we'll set that to y in the parentheses here. And click backspace here in the same indentation as the for j, and then here you're gonna go ahead and do enemy dot speed amount, again speed amount, and then multiplied times equals -1. Okay, now we're gonna create another if condition. So if enemy dot x core is less than -425, and then we'll say for j in enemies y is equal to j dot y core, y minus equals 20, and then we'll say j dot set y, and put y in the parentheses there. Click backspace, enemy dot speed amount times equals 1. Wait, it'll be -1. Yeah. Okay, so we're done with that whole section there for the movement for the back and down. Now let's go ahead and let's go back to that same indentation there. And here we're going to be checking for collision, and it'll be between bullet and enemy, I believe. Okay, so here, if collision play, so that's that same function that we created, and in parentheses we'll have B and enemy in here. So now B dot hide turtle, we'll have that, and then B dot state, which will be ready. And then we'll have that win sound module that we imported here. So win sound dot play sound, and then we're gonna play the explosion. So let's go here, explosion dot wave. This is the sound, and we'll go ahead, copy relative path, and in here in double quotes we'll put that in there. I'm gonna close this time. Okay, so there, you guys should have done that as well, but this is a sound, so we're going to do that win sound and then .snd async right here. There we go. Okay, so now let's go ahead and set the position of the bullet, right? So b dot set position right there, and then we'll have 0, -400. That's where it'll start. X is equal to random dot random -300, 300. Oops, let me fix that. Okay, and then we'll have y is equal to random dot randint, and then here it'll be 180 and 280. Okay, and finally we're gonna do an enemy dot set position, which will be X and Y. This code may seem familiar to you because we basically did that same thing in the enemy file. So we're doing it here as well. And now let's go ahead. I'm going to put another comment. This is for the score. Okay, so s dot score value, and then we'll have plus equals 10. So that's saying each time the player kills an enemy, it's going to increase our score by 10. S dot clear, and then we'll have s dot write. Let's see. So this is the same thing in the score. We had the score dot, or sorry, score colon. So this is the how our text is going to look on our screen. We have the curly brackets where the score is going to be put in there, dot format, and in parentheses we have s dot score value, and then we'll have our align, which will be at the left of the screen, and we'll have our font, which will be Arial, and then we'll have it 14 and bold. I think something is wrong here. Oh, okay. So I just forgot that quotation there. I thought it was something to do with the parentheses. Okay, so there we go. We fixed that error. And that's all for that score. Let's click backspace, and here we're going to do, again, the collision between bullet and enemy. And now here we'll have if collision, we'll have an if condition here. If collision, P and enemy. So, oh, actually it might be player and enemy because we're doing P. I'll see later. Okay, so for E in enemies, let's do that. We'll have E dot hide turtle, and then backspace P dot hide turtle. There we go. Okay, so we're almost done, guys. Now we're again going to do some code for the score here. So we'll have s dot pen up. S is the score. We'll have s dot go to 0 0. The center of the screen. We'll say s dot pen down because this is where we're going to write. And here we're going to say s dot write game over. Put that little explanation mark. And then we'll have align, which is to the left. We'll have font. Oops. Not in quotation. Font, and then now quotation, Arial 14 and bold. Okay, so this here is the text for what's going to happen when the game is over, when the enemy collides with the player. So I think this should be player and enemy. Yeah, that makes sense. So player and enemy, when the player collides with the enemy, then we're going to set this text here. The score will go back to 0, right? So we're going to go to the center of the screen, which is 0 0, and we're going to write game over. All right. So that's that. Now let's go ahead and click backspace. Here we'll have an if condition. If enemy.y core empty parentheses is less than or equal to -200, then we'll have the win sound dot play sound. Here, let's see, we're going to use the game over sound. I believe, yeah, it's right here. So this isn't the best sound. I don't know if I'm actually going to use it. Yeah, but I'll just see. I'll put it in. We'll see how it turns out at the end. Let's go ahead, put that in there. Copy this path. So after that win sound, we're gonna do a 4J in enemies, and then colon, we'll have j dot hide turtle, and then p dot hide turtle, just like that. Okay, now again we're going to do the game over thing. So same exact thing as we did here. Yep, should have copied that. And then I'll go back here. Okay, there we go. So we're literally just gonna put in that same code, and then at the end we're gonna say break. Okay, so now let's go back. We're not gonna go all the way to the first, indentation. We'll have one indent there. Yeah, oops, there we go. So here we'll do the bullet movement, and this is like, we only have a few more lines of code to go, probably like 10 lines of code. So we're almost done, guys. Now let's go ahead and put in this comment, which is bullet movement. And here I'm going to set the y coordinate. I'm going to close this. Y coordinate to be b.y core. And then y plus equals b.speed amount. So speed amount. And then we're also going to set the bullet to b.set y and y. Okay. Now we're going to just put in two more if conditions here. So if b.y core is greater than 150, then we'll have that state of the bullet to be ready. And then we'll also, that's all for that first if condition. For the second one, we'll say b.y core is greater than 300, and then b.high turtle. And then we'll also set the state to be ready. State is equal to ready. Okay, so guess what? We have now completed our Space Invaders program. Okay guys, so actually before we run this, I did find a few lines of code that I forgot to add in here. So I'm just going to go ahead and let's go ahead and make those changes. The first thing is in line 105, where we have put in the game over sound. I forgot to put in that win sound async line of code. So it's in that same line, we're going to say winsound.snd underscore async. So this is also, we've done this a couple of other times in the same program where we have imported the other sounds. And also after this score code here, in line 102, I'm just going to go ahead and say break. So make sure to make those changes as well, and now we can run this code. So I'll click on the run button, and there we go. We have our Space Invaders game that has come up on our screen. This looks amazing. I'm going to go ahead and turn the volume down a little bit for the sounds here. Alright, so let's go ahead, shoot there, and our bullet is launched, and I missed. Okay, let's try it again. There we go. Oh, and we also had that explosion sound that is played. This looks great so far. If only I could play better and actually these guys. That's good. So our score is also displayed at the top of the screen here. You see that I just killed an enemy and it increased by 10. So you can see that I have that I've killed 4 enemies, as my score is 3. So I'm just gonna try and wait for one of them to come down to the player, so we can see how the game over will be displayed on the screen. Oh. So I'll just wait for these guys to come. We'll see what happens. But this looks great so far. It looks awesome. This is a super fun game to play. So make sure you guys show this to your family and friends as well. I'm sure they will love it. Okay guys, so as you can see, the enemy has reached the player and it is displaying this game over text on our screen. It also still shows our score at the top, which is 60, and that is great. So I had a lot of fun coding this project, and I hope you guys did as well. If you enjoyed this video, please give this video a big thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to NPStation. But that's all for today. Keep reading, keep coding, and stay safe.